Hi guys, welcome back to At Home with Holly. My name's Holly. I'm so glad that you're here with me today. Today we are starting onions, and so I am so excited to be in the grow room with you guys. The last time we were here together, we started our sweet potato slips. Now it's going to be several weeks before they do anything, but those are up there, all tucked in, waiting to sprout, and then we are going to have amazing sweet potato slips, both the edible and the ornamental kind. So I'm excited about that. Today we're going to be doing our onions. You can grow onions from starts, which is the little mini plants that you can buy from a local gardening center or from growers. You can start onions from sets, which look like little mini baby onions, and you can start them from seed. So the thing about onions is they're biennials. So the first year they want to grow a bulb, and then they want to go dormant and take all that energy that's stored in the bulb. That's why the part that we eat is the bulb. And the second year, they're going to use that bulb to produce a flower, which has seeds, and it's called going to seed. I don't want my onions to go to seed because they don't store as well. All the things, right? I want long storage onions. I want to be able to get my use out of them, good use out of them. So because onions are biennial, the first year, they don't normally. Sometimes they can go to seed if you have crazy weather changes. But the thing with sets is sometimes they're more often to go to seed and they don't get as large. So I personally, for my bang for my buck, like to try to grow them from seed. I have gotten the starts as well, the live mini plants. And those are my second choice if I can't grow them from seed, or if I start too late, or if something happens, because stuff happens in the grow room. Sometimes you forget to water or you overwater, or all the things can happen, and that's part of just growing and learning. So I have ordered them many times, and I probably will again in the future, but this year we're going to grow from seed. So the three varieties, well, I got 4 varieties. One isn't here yet of shallots. I've got 2 varieties of shallots, 1 variety of white onions, and 1 variety of red onions that are all storage varieties. So shallots are a little different than onions. You can start them from seed and they will grow. They will look just like your onions. You transplant them into the ground just like onions as soon as you can work the soil in April, early April, late March for my area. And they grow and they have a bulb and they fall over and they die, and you can harvest them. And then you can actually replant that single bulb of a shallot, kind of like garlic. You plant it in the fall and it overwinters and it multiplies. So shallots are a little different, but you start shallots and onions the same way from seed. So that's what we're doing today. So for our onions, we are going to be planting red wing onions for our red onions. I plant these every year. I have a lot of success with them. And we're going to be planting our Patterson onions for our white onions as well. And then for our shallots, we're going to be doing 2 different kinds of shallots. We're going to be doing Zabroon shallots. And then we're also going to be doing, I will put the name of the ones that I'm growing. I ordered from Johnny's and they're not here yet. And so we're going to be growing these type as well. Shallots can come in these kind of like banana shaped, like longer ones that are easier to peel, or more round. I've grown the round ones in the past and I want to switch over to these easier to peel ones. So although I do have a whole crate still that I'm eating through of the round ones upstairs, I'm trying to switch everything over to these easier to peel ones because we want easy to peel things. So we've got 3 of our 4 seed varieties. So I'm just going to plant up 3/4 of what we're doing. And then when the other ones come, I'll sprinkle those in and get them added. They should be here any day now. They were supposed to be here a couple days ago, but sometimes packages take a little longer. So we're going to get our seed starting mix mixed together. And so what I have in here is some Pro Mix. I've added Pro Mix seed starting mix. And then I also have added in some really hot water. I'm also going to sprinkle in some Trifecta Plus. This is optional. I highly recommend it though. So this is Trifecta Plus. It is an organic, slow release, very balanced fertilizer from MI Gardener. And I add a little bit of this to all of my seed starting mixes that I mix up. Seeds don't need fertilizer to germinate. But once they start growing and they have roots going down, they do need some nutrition to uptake. And so I like having this natural slow released one, organic slow release one, so that when they're ready to uptake it, if they want to uptake it, they can. And if they don't, that's okay too. So I'm going to add a little bit of this in, get it all mixed together, and we're going to fill up our trays. If you don't pre-moisten your mix, then when you go to add your seeds to it, it'll be all dry and fluffy, and you'll put your seeds in and you go to water it in, and the seeds and the air bubbles and all the things, and it won't settle in nicely, and you can dislodge your seeds, and you went through all that work to get it the way you want it. So definitely pre-moisten your soil and then add it to your containers. So this is what we're looking for. You squeeze it and it stays together, but you can't really squeeze out any moisture. That's what you want. You don't want it to be dripping and soaking wet, but you do want it to be wet enough where it holds together. So we're going to fill up each of these containers, and then we'll get them over here. Get them in our 10-20 tray. Okay, so the really fun thing about planting onions from seed is that they will grow together. You can multi-sow, meaning you can sprinkle a whole bunch in this pot. So these are the growing setup that I have today. Is I have these little 4-inch containers, and I have 8 of them in a 10-20 tray. So since I'm growing 4 different kinds of things, I'm going to be growing 2 cells of Patterson, 2 cells of Red Wing, 2 cells of Zabroon, and 2 cells of the other kind that's still not here yet. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to label them. I'm going to be really good about labeling them. So let me get my labels ready. 1, 2. So onions are light sensitive. So if you live, generally speaking, and there are some places that there are exceptions, but generally speaking, if you live in the northern half of the United States, you will be growing long day onions because you have the longest amount of daylight. The way that onions grow is they get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger as the daylight gets longer and longer and longer. And as soon as you hit the longest day of the year, they stop getting bigger. So long day onions are meant for the north, and then there's intermediate and short day onions. That's more for the south. Technically, I'm on the line and I could grow long day or intermediate, but I just always grow the long day ones. So you need to check where you live and see what kind of varieties of onions are right for where you live. But for where I am in Northwest Ohio, I can grow long day onions. So that's what these are. The Patterson, dropped it. The Patterson and the Red Wing are long day varieties of storage onions. And the Zabroon shallots and the kind of shallots that I ordered from Johnny's that isn't here yet, they both say that they can be grown as long day varieties. Now, the seeds, generally speaking, when you buy seeds, you can use them from year to year to year. The exceptions to that generally are pelleted seeds because they come with a little clay coating on them. And that coating makes it so that it's easier to see where you plant, but it also makes it so that the germination doesn't last that great from year to year to year. So the first exception is if they're pelleted seeds. The second exception is the ones that their germination rates decrease rapidly. So the first year you're at like 80, 90%. The second year you're at like 40, 50% are carrots and onions, shallots. So I do buy fresh seed every year. However, I have like 3 packets of Zabroon shallots, so I'm just going to plant very heavily, even though one of these packets is 2024 and one of them is 2025. So either way, it's going to be okay. So we're going to get started with, so just know that you don't always have to buy fresh seed every year. I have a lot of seed that's 4 or 5 years old. Instead of planting 1, I'll just plant 2. And they're still totally fine. They're not going to do any good to throw away, so you might as well plant them. But for onions, carrots, and pelleted seeds, that's best to get fresh every year. So the first thing we're going to do is our Red Wing onions. Let me bring you in and show you what we're going to do. So we're going to take our onion seeds, and we are just going to sprinkle right over the top. Probably about, well, I don't know, 50 to 70 seeds per each one of these little 4-inch containers. And that's the perfect amount. So we did our Red Wings. Now we're going to do our Patterson, same thing. These are going to grow together and it's going to look like a clump of grass. And when we're ready to plant them, I'll just take the whole clump out of here and pull them apart one by one. The roots will just tease apart beautifully. It won't damage them at all. They don't mind being pulled apart. They're not like other things that are super sensitive. They are okay if you just kind of tease them apart. So here's our Patterson. And then lastly, we are going to do our Zabroon shallots. And we are going to, let's see, we're going to plant very heavily. We're going to plant one of these packets on each. Because these are older, I expect probably less than half of them to germinate. So we're going to do, and I could be wrong, they could all come up and that'll be a lovely surprise. And then I'll give away some shallot starts to my friends. So I'm going to use up the 2 packets that I had from 2024, and then I will split my 2025 packet between the 2. This is definitely overkill. MI Gardener's seeds have a wonderful germination rate. I normally would not plant this heavy, but since onions and shallots are notorious for their germination rates not being awesome after the first year, we're just going to go ahead and use all those up. So then we'll save the last one for the one that I can't remember the name of right now. So I will lay those down. So I'm going to take a little bit of soil, just a little bit, just barely enough, and just cover these up ever so lightly. And then I'll water them in. Now this last step is also optional, but I like to cover mine with a little bit of vermiculite. It helps with water retention. It helps a little bit with any fungus or mold or water issues. It basically makes it so they don't get too much and don't dry out. It's kind of an amazing fix. And sunlight still gets through. So if seeds needed light to germinate, they would still be able to do that, even with the vermiculite. So I always do a light dusting of vermiculite, water that in. And now we have our second tray all ready to go. We're going to go ahead and get this set up underneath the grow lights on our shelf. You can use a heat mat. You cannot use a heat mat. Either way, they're going to come up. They'll just come up quicker with the heat mat. Anytime you're using a heat mat, once things germinate, you need to take it off the heat mat. Otherwise, you're going to be cooking your seedlings, and you don't want to cook these. These are cold weather. These are okay. These are okay to be in cold weather, so they will start without the heat mat. But I have the space, and I don't have anything on it, so I'm just going to go ahead and throw it on a heat mat. So we're going to let these grow. These are going to grow, and we're probably they're going to look like fun grass growing in here, and we're going to trim them back 2 or 3 times because that sends all the energy back down in the roots and gets nice, big, strong starts that we're going to have to plant outside in just a couple months. Just about 2.5 months, we're going to have these outside. So this is the perfect time to start these. So I'm going to get these on the rack underneath the lights, and these will start growing. So I want to thank you guys so much for all the likes and the comments and the shares. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. We have a whole lot more growing and gardening and preserving and building and chickens and all kinds of fun things that we do around here. So I'm so glad that you're here with us today, and I can't wait to see you guys next time. Bye, my friend. Looking good.